Maya Chen sat in the back row of advanced xenobiology, trying her best to blend in with the other students at Celestial Academy. The prestigious institution floated in the void between star systems, accepting only the brightest minds from across the galaxy. As the only human among creatures that could manipulate gravity, phase through matter, or communicate telepathically, Maya often felt like a cosmic joke. Professor Veltar, a crystalline being whose faceted body refracted the classroom's artificial light into rainbow patterns, gestured toward the holographic display showing various planetary ecosystems. Today we examine the breathing mechanisms of carbon-based life forms, the professor announced, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Maya pulled her jacket tighter around herself. The classroom maintained a temperature perfect for most species, but humans always seemed to run a few degrees warmer than everyone else. She'd learned to dress in layers during her 3 months at the academy. Miss Chen? Professor Veltar's attention suddenly focused on her, making her stomach drop. Perhaps you could demonstrate the breathing process of your species for the class. Heat rushed to Maya's face as dozens of alien eyes, sensors, and optical organs turned toward her. A Zephyrian student's gaseous form shimmered with what she recognized as amusement, while the insectoid Vexhi clicked their mandibles in what passed for polite interest. Well, it's nothing special, Maya stammered, standing slowly. Humans just breathe oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Pretty standard for mammals. Nevertheless, the professor insisted, his crystalline form pulsing with educational enthusiasm, demonstration often proves more valuable than description. Please show us. Maya took a deep breath, acutely aware of how mundane her species must seem to these incredible beings. The Aquarians could extract oxygen directly from water through specialized gills. The ethereals absorbed energy from cosmic radiation. Even the rocklings could enter suspended animation for centuries, requiring no air at all. As she exhaled, something unexpected happened. A small puff of flame escaped her lips. The classroom fell silent. Not the comfortable quiet of focused learning, but the absolute stillness that comes when the impossible occurs in plain sight. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with shock and terror. Fascinating, Professor Veltar whispered, his form brightening with excitement. Most fascinating indeed. The Zephyrian student's gaseous form began swirling rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Impossible, they communicated through chemical releases that the universal translators converted to speech. Humans are not pyrokinetic. All research confirms this. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd never breathed fire before. She'd never even felt particularly warm-blooded compared to other humans. Her medical scans upon arrival at the academy had shown nothing unusual. She was average height, average weight, average intelligence by human standards, exceptional only in her xenobiology knowledge, which had earned her the scholarship to attend Celestial Academy. I don't understand, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's never happened before. Professor Veltar moved closer, his crystalline structure refracting light in patterns that suggested deep thought. With your permission, Miss Chen, I would like to run some additional scans. This development is unprecedented. Before Maya could respond, the classroom's emergency alert system activated. Harsh blue lights bathed the room as a voice echoed through the academy's communication system. All students and faculty report to designated safety zones immediately. Unknown vessels have been detected approaching the academy. This is not a drill. The students began filing out in orderly fashion, each species moving according to their particular locomotion methods. The Aquarians formed a flowing stream toward the exit, while the ethereals simply phased through the walls. Maya gathered her belongings with shaking hands, still processing what had just occurred. Miss Chen, Professor Veltar approached her as the last students departed. I believe you should accompany me to the Faculty Emergency Center. Given this new development, the administration will want to speak with you. As they moved through the Academy's corridors, Maya caught glimpses through the massive viewing ports of the approaching vessels. They were unlike anything in her xenobiology textbooks, sleek and dark with organic curves that suggested they had been grown rather than built. Strange energy signatures rippled along their hulls like scales catching light. Professor? Maya asked as they entered a transport tube that would carry them to the faculty levels. What kind of ships are those? The crystalline being's form dimmed noticeably. I have seen such vessels only in ancient texts, Miss Chen. If my identification is correct, those are dragon ships. Maya's blood turned to ice. Dragons were legend, myth, stories told across hundreds of worlds about beings of immense power who had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. Every spacefaring civilization had dragon myths, though the details varied wildly between cultures. But dragons aren't real, Maya protested weakly. Perhaps, Professor Veltar replied as the transport tube carried them higher into the Academy's structure. We have been mistaken about many things. The faculty emergency center buzzed with activity when they arrived. Dean Mordak, an imposing titan whose species stood nearly 3 meters tall and communicated through subsonic frequencies, was coordinating with the Academy's defensive systems. Various department heads flickered between states of matter, phased in and out of reality, or maintained steady forms depending on their species' stress responses. Veltar, the dean's voice rumbled through the floor as much as the air. What brings you here during an emergency? Dean Mordak, I believe Miss Chen's presence may be relevant to our current situation, the professor replied, gently guiding Maya forward. Before the dean could respond, another alert echoed through the chamber. Incoming transmission from approaching vessels. The main display activated, showing a figure that made Maya's breath catch in her throat. The being appeared roughly humanoid but was clearly something far more ancient and powerful. Scales covered their skin in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Their eyes held depths that suggested intelligence spanning eons. When the dragon spoke, their voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond normal space-time. Greetings, Celestial Academy. We have traveled far, following an ancient call. We seek the one who carries the first flame. Send them to us, or we will take them. All eyes in the emergency center turned to Maya, who was still staring at the dragon's image with growing understanding and terror. Somehow, impossibly, her small puff of flame had called these legendary beings across the galaxy. The dragon's eyes seemed to look directly at her through the transmission. We know you are there, little flame bearer. We have waited so very long for your awakening. The transmission ended, leaving the emergency center in stunned silence. Maya felt as though the artificial gravity had failed, her stomach floating somewhere near her throat. Every being in the room was staring at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright fear. Dean Mordak's subsonic voice vibrated through the deck plating. Miss Chen, I believe you have some explaining to do. I don't know what's happening, Maya said, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. I've never breathed fire before today. I don't understand any of this. Professor Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations. Dean, with your permission, I'd like to run a full spectral analysis of Miss Chen's biosignatures. If she truly carries what these dragons call the first flame, we need to understand what that means. Before the dean could respond, the Academy shuddered, not the gentle movement of orbital adjustments, but a violent shake that sent several faculty members scrambling for support. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in amber warnings. Report, Dean Mordak commanded. Commander Thex, the Academy's head of security, materialized through a wall. Her ethereal species' ability to phase through matter made her invaluable during emergencies. Sir, the dragon vessels have surrounded us. They're not attacking, but they've established what appears to be a containment field. Nothing gets in or out without their permission. Maya's heart sank. Whatever was happening to her, she'd managed to get the entire Academy taken hostage. Thousands of students and faculty from across the galaxy were now trapped because of something she didn't understand and couldn't control. There has to be something in the archives, Professor Veltar mused aloud. Dragons haven't been seen for millions of years, but they can't have vanished without leaving some record. Dr. Sixara, the head of archaeological studies, stepped forward. Her species, the chroniclers, possessed perfect memory and could access vast databases through direct neural interface. I have been searching since the transmission ended, she said, her voice carrying the slight harmonic distortion of active data streaming. References to the first flame appear in texts from dozens of ancient civilizations, but always as myth or legend. What do the myths say? Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. They vary significantly, Dr. Sixara replied, her eyes glowing with data access. Some describe it as the original spark of consciousness in the galaxy. Others claim it's a weapon capable of igniting stars. A few suggest it's the genetic heritage of the first intelligent species. Maya felt sick. I'm just a human from Earth. We're barely a Type 1 civilization. We only figured out faster than light travel 50 years ago. Perhaps, said a new voice from the chamber's entrance. That is exactly the point. Everyone turned to see Chancellor Vordun entering the emergency center. The Academy's leader was ancient even by eternal standards, a species known for their longevity and wisdom. Her presence alone seemed to calm the chaotic energy in the room. Chancellor, Dean Mordick acknowledged with a respectful subsonic rumble. I have been reviewing our oldest records, the Chancellor continued, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. Before the Academy was founded, before most of our civilizations reached the stars, there were stories. Stories of the first ones who seeded the galaxy with intelligence, who lit the flame of consciousness in countless species. Maya shook her head. That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records going back millions of years. Evolution and seeding are not mutually exclusive, Chancellor Vordun observed gently. The first ones were said to work subtly, nudging rather than creating, guiding rather than commanding. Another tremor shook the Academy, stronger this time. Commander Thex's form solidified as she prepared to phase out for another reconnaissance report. Wait, Maya said suddenly. They're not attacking. They said they've been waiting for my awakening. What if they just want to talk? The emergency center fell silent again. The idea of voluntarily engaging with beings powerful enough to trap the entire Academy seemed beyond reckless. Absolutely not. Dean Mordack's subsonic voice carried finality. We will not hand over a student to unknown entities regardless of their claims. But I'm not just any student anymore, am I? Maya replied, meeting the Dean's gaze despite the intimidation factor of his massive frame. Something's changed in me. Something that called them here. Maybe the only way to keep everyone safe is to find out what they want. Professor Veltar's form brightened with what Maya had learned to recognize as intense interest. There may be wisdom in that approach. If Miss Chen is truly connected to these dragons in some way, communication might yield better results than resistance. Chancellor Vordun moved closer to Maya, her ancient eyes studying the young human with careful attention. Child, are you willing to speak with them? Knowing that we cannot predict the consequences? Maya thought about her classmates, her professors, the incredible diversity of life forms that made up the Academy community. She thought about the Zephyrian student who had helped her understand atmospheric chemistry, the Aquarian who had shared techniques for underwater meditation, the Rocklings who had taught her patience through their millennia-spanning perspective. I'll do it, she said firmly, but not alone. If I'm going to meet dragons, I want witnesses, and I want to do it somewhere public where everyone can see what happens. Commander Thex phased back into the chamber, her form crackling with urgency. Chancellor, the dragons are requesting permission to send a representative aboard. They say they will wait 1 hour for our response. There's your answer, Maya said. Let them send someone here. To the main assembly hall. Every student and faculty member can attend if they want to. Whatever happens, it happens in the open. Dean Mordack's subsonic frequencies conveyed deep concern. This is highly irregular. The safety protocols alone. What safety protocols cover dragon encounters? Maya asked with a weak smile. I don't think we're in textbook territory anymore. Chancellor Vordun was quiet for a long moment, her ancient mind processing possibilities and consequences. Finally, she nodded slowly. Very well. We will receive their representative in the Grand Assembly. All who wish to attend may do so, though we will maintain emergency protocols. As the faculty began coordinating the unprecedented meeting, Maya found herself wondering what her parents back on Earth would think if they knew their daughter was about to have a conversation with a dragon. She'd always been the cautious one in the family, the one who studied hard and followed rules and dreamed of becoming a xenobiologist because she loved learning about different forms of life. Now, it seemed she was about to become the subject of xenobiology herself. Professor Veltar approached her as the emergency center buzzed with activity. Miss Chen, there is something else. During my preliminary scans while you were speaking, I detected unusual energy patterns in your cellular structure, patterns that seem to be strengthening. What kind of patterns? Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew. Thermal generation at the molecular level. Your body temperature has increased by 2 degrees since the first incident of flame production. And Miss Chen, the professor paused, his crystalline form dimming with concern. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's not technological or psychic or even biological as we understand it. It's something else entirely. Maya looked down at her hands. They appeared completely normal, but she could feel something moving beneath her skin, like warm honey flowing through her veins. Whatever was happening to her was accelerating. In 1 hour she would meet a dragon, and somehow she suspected that encounter would change not just her life, but her very species. The Grand Assembly Hall of Celestial Academy had never hosted anything like this. Students and faculty from dozens of species filled the vast space, their forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. The Aquarians had arranged themselves in flowing pools along the lower levels, while the ethereals flickered in and out of visibility near the ceiling. Crystalline beings like Professor Veltar formed geometric patterns that caught and reflected the chamber's light, and the gaseous Zephyrians swirled in anxious formations throughout the upper atmosphere. Maya sat in the center of the speaker's platform, feeling smaller than she ever had in her life. Chancellor Vordoon stood beside her, a reassuring presence despite the magnitude of what was about to occur. The energy she'd felt flowing through her veins had grown stronger during the past hour, and twice she'd had to concentrate hard to keep from accidentally breathing more flames. "Remember," the Chancellor said quietly, "you are not just representing yourself but all of humanity. These beings have knowledge spanning eons. Listen carefully to what they say and what they don't say." The main doors to the assembly hall opened with a resonance that seemed to vibrate through dimensions. Maya's breath caught as the dragon representative entered. The being was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, they moved with fluid grace that suggested complete mastery over both matter and energy. Their scales shifted colors like liquid starlight, and their eyes held depths that spoke of witnessing the birth and death of civilizations. But what struck Maya most was the sense of ancient sadness that seemed to radiate from them. The dragon approached the platform with measured steps, each footfall creating small harmonic resonances that the universal translators struggled to interpret. When they spoke, their voice carried frequencies that bypassed hearing and spoke directly to consciousness. "I am Nixandros, first speaker of the Dragon Conclave," they announced. "We greet the students and faculty of Celestial Academy with respect and ancient brotherhood." Chancellor Vordoon stepped forward. "We welcome you, Nixandros. I am Chancellor Vordoon. We are honored by your presence, though we confess confusion about your purpose here." Nixandros turned their attention to Maya, and she felt the weight of eons in that gaze. "The purpose is her. The one who carries the first flame awakens at last." Maya found her voice, though it seemed inadequate compared to the dragon's resonant tones. "I don't understand what's happening to me. This morning I was just a xenobiology student. Now you're saying I carry some ancient flame?" "Not carry," Nixandros corrected gently. "You are the flame. The spark that was planted in your species long ago has finally found proper kindling." A murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Professor Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with rapid data processing as he attempted to understand the implications. "Explain, please," Chancellor Vordoon requested. "What do you mean by planted in her species?" Nixandros moved closer to the platform, their presence both comforting and overwhelming. "Long ago, when the galaxy was young and most worlds were barren, the first ones walked among the stars. They were not dragons, though we learned much from them before they departed for realms beyond this dimension. Before leaving, they seeded certain worlds with the potential for consciousness, for growth, for the flame of intelligence that could eventually transcend physical limitations." Maya felt heat building in her chest again. "Are you saying humans are artificial? That we're some kind of experiment?" "Not artificial," the dragon replied with what might have been amusement. "Enhanced. Your species evolved naturally on your world, as did many others. But the first ones touched your genetic line with possibility. Most humans never awaken this potential. Perhaps 1 in a billion carries the proper combination of genetics and circumstance." Dr. Sixara's voice carried the harmonic distortion of active database searching. "The statistical probability of such a carrier attending Celestial Academy would be infinitesimal. Unless," Nixandros said, turning their ancient gaze to the chronicler, "the awakening was triggered by exposure to the diverse energies present in this place. The Academy serves students from across the galaxy. It is a nexus of consciousness unlike anywhere else in known space." Maya's mind raced. "So being here, around all these different species, their different types of awareness and energy, that's what triggered this change?" The trigger was exposure, the dragon confirmed. But the potential was always within you. Your people call it junk DNA, genetic material with no apparent purpose. But the first ones waste nothing. Every sequence they touched serves a function, waiting for the proper moment to activate. Professor Veltar's excitement was visible in the rapid pulses of light through his crystalline structure. The implications for evolutionary biology are staggering. If this is true, there could be similar potential dormant in other species. There is, Nixandros acknowledged, but humans are the first to successfully awaken in 3 million years. The last was a species we called the Luminar, who transcended physical existence entirely when their flame-bearer reached full awakening. A chill ran down Maya's spine. Transcended? What happened to them? They became one with the cosmic consciousness that flows between stars, the dragon replied. They chose to leave physical reality behind and join the first ones in whatever realm lies beyond our dimension. The assembled crowd stirred uneasily. The idea of an entire species simply disappearing into some higher plane of existence was disturbing on multiple levels. But that's a choice, isn't it? Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. I mean, awakening doesn't automatically mean transcendence? Nixandros was quiet for a moment, their scales shifting through patterns of deep blue and silver. It is complicated. The first flame, once fully awakened, seeks reunion with its source. The pull becomes stronger over time. Most flame-bearers eventually choose transcendence over remaining in physical form. Maya felt the heat in her chest intensify, and with it came a strange sensation she couldn't quite identify. It was like homesickness for a place she'd never been, longing for something she'd never experienced. How long? She asked quietly. That depends on many factors, the dragon replied. Some flame-bearers have remained in physical form for centuries, learning to balance their awakening with their material existence. Others have chosen transcendence within days of their first manifestation. Chancellor Vordun stepped closer to Maya, her ancient presence providing comfort. What do your people want with Miss Chen? Want? Nixandros seemed surprised by the question. We want nothing except to offer guidance. Dragons were the students of the first ones before they departed. We learned to control cosmic fire, to traverse dimensions, to exist between matter and energy. But we are not flame-bearers ourselves. We are merely guardians of the knowledge. Maya looked around the assembly hall at all the faces and optical organs and sensor arrays focused on her. Students who had become friends, professors who had challenged her thinking, beings from across the galaxy who had accepted a strange human into their academic community. What if I don't want to transcend? She asked. What if I want to stay here, learn to control this power, maybe even help others understand it? Nixandros' expression became unreadable. That is your choice, Flamebearer. But understand that the power growing within you will not remain stable indefinitely, without proper training, without understanding the deeper mysteries of the first flame. You risk not only your own existence, but potentially the safety of those around you. As if summoned by the dragon's words, Maya felt another surge of heat. This time she couldn't contain it. Flames erupted from her mouth and nose. Not the small puff from the classroom, but a genuine torrent of fire that lasted several seconds before she managed to regain control. The scorch marks on the platform's surface drove home Nixandros' point with disturbing clarity. The choice before you is not simple, the dragon continued gently, but it is yours to make. We offer training, knowledge, the wisdom accumulated over millions of years. Whether you use that knowledge to master your power or prepare for transcendence, that decision belongs to you alone. Maya looked at Professor Veltar, at Chancellor Vordun, at the hundreds of beings who had become her extended family. The heat in her chest pulsed like a second heartbeat, and with each pulse, she could feel something vast and ancient calling to her from the spaces between stars. She was 19 years old, and she was about to make a choice that would determine not just her fate, but possibly the destiny of her entire species. The silence following Maya's fiery outburst stretched across the assembly hall like a held breath. She could feel the heat still coursing through her body, stronger now and somehow more organized, as if it was learning how to move through her systems. The scorch marks on the platform served as a stark reminder that she was no longer entirely human, at least not in any way her species understood. I need time to think, Maya said finally, her voice carrying across the vast space despite her attempt to speak quietly. This is bigger than just me. If what you're saying is true, If humans really do carry this potential, then my choice affects my entire species. Nixandros inclined their great head in understanding. Wisdom speaks through you, young flame-bearer. Time, however, may be a luxury you cannot afford indefinitely. The awakening process accelerates with each manifestation. What you experienced just now was significantly stronger than your first flame, was it not? Maya nodded reluctantly. She could feel the difference herself. The fire had come from deeper within her, lasted longer, and left her feeling both drained and somehow more alive than before. Professor Veltar approached the platform, his crystalline form pulsing with complex calculations. Nixandros, with respect, might we have access to some of your historical data? If we're to help Miss Chen make an informed decision, we need to understand the full scope of what she's experiencing. The dragon's scales shifted to warmer hues, suggesting approval. A reasonable request. I will share what records we possess, though much of the deeper knowledge can only be transmitted through direct teaching. Chancellor Vorden stepped forward. What would such teaching involve? Meditation techniques to help control the flame's manifestations. History lessons about the first ones and their purpose in seeding consciousness throughout the galaxy. Physical exercises to help channel the energy safely. Nixandros paused, their ancient eyes studying Maya carefully, and preparation for the choice that all flame-bearers must eventually face. Maya felt a chill despite the heat flowing through her veins. You make it sound like transcendence is inevitable. Not inevitable, the dragon corrected gently. But natural. The first flame seeks reunion with its source. Resisting that pull requires constant effort and gradually becomes more difficult as the awakening progresses. Dr. Sixara's database-enhanced voice carried new information. I have been cross-referencing dragon historical references with our archaeological records. There are mentions of the Luminar species in several ancient texts. According to these sources, their transformation from physical to transcendent beings took place over a period of several centuries. Centuries? Maya asked, feeling a spark of hope. So it's not like I have to decide tomorrow? The Luminar had a different physiology, Nixandros replied. Their awakening process was more gradual. Human biology is more efficient. Your species processes change rapidly, adapts quickly. What took the Luminar centuries might take you decades or less. The weight of that revelation settled over the assembly hall like a heavy blanket. Maya looked out at the sea of faces. Beings from dozens of worlds who had accepted her as a fellow student, who had shared their knowledge and culture with her. The thought of eventually leaving them behind felt like a physical pain. Commander Thex materialized through the wall near the platform, her ethereal form shimmering with urgency. Chancellor, we're receiving communications from multiple sources. Word of the dragon arrival has spread beyond the Academy. Several galactic governments are requesting information, and the Earth Coalition is demanding immediate contact with Miss Chen. Maya's heart sank. Of course, news of dragons appearing would spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. And of course, Earth would want to know why their citizen was apparently the center of an unprecedented first contact situation. How long before we have official visitors? Chancellor Vorden asked. Coalition representatives are already en route, Commander Thex replied. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. The Galactic Council has requested a formal report within 72 hours. Nixandros' scales shifted to darker hues, suggesting displeasure. Politicians and bureaucrats, they said with obvious distaste. They will want to study you, young flame-bearer, to understand how your power might be weaponized or controlled. They will not understand that the first flame cannot be forced into service. The heat in Maya's chest pulsed again, and this time she felt something new, a sense of vast distance, as if part of her awareness was suddenly looking down at the Academy from somewhere far above. The sensation lasted only a moment, but it left her shaken. That's new, she whispered, touching her chest where the energy felt strongest. Professor Veltar's form brightened with scientific interest. What did you experience? It was like I was suddenly somewhere else looking down at us from space, but I was still here too. Maya struggled to find words for the impossible sensation. Is that normal? Dimensional awareness, Nixandros confirmed. Another sign of progression. The first flame exists partially outside normal spacetime. As it awakens within you, your consciousness begins to expand beyond the limitations of single-dimensional existence. Maya felt sick. How long do I have before these episodes become permanent? Unknown. Each flame bearer is unique. The dragon's voice carried genuine sympathy. But young one, you speak as if these changes are a disease to be cured. What if instead they are a gift to be embraced? A gift that will eventually take me away from everyone I care about, Maya replied bitterly. Some gift. Chancellor Vordun placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. Child, perhaps the question is not whether to accept or resist these changes, but how to make the most of whatever time you have. If you are truly changing into something beyond human understanding, maybe your purpose is to bridge the gap between what humanity is and what it could become. Before Maya could respond, another voice echoed through the assembly hall. This one came from the Academy's communication system, crisp and official. Attention, Celestial Academy. This is Admiral Torres of the Earth Coalition Navy. We are approaching your position and request immediate permission to dock. We are here for Citizen Maya Chen. Maya's blood turned to ice. Admiral Torres was one of Earth's most decorated military leaders, known for her role in the Alpha Centauri conflicts. She wasn't the kind of person sent for a friendly diplomatic mission. They're coming to take me home, Maya said quietly. To study you, Nixandros corrected. Your species will want to understand how to replicate your abilities, how to create more flame bearers under controlled conditions. They will not understand that the awakening cannot be forced or manufactured. The heat in Maya's chest suddenly flared, and she felt another dimensional shift. This time she found herself aware of the coalition ships approaching the Academy, sleek military vessels bristling with weapons and scientific equipment. She could sense the intentions of those aboard: curiosity, fear, ambition, and a burning desire to unlock what they saw as humanity's potential for cosmic power. The vision ended abruptly, leaving her gasping on the platform. Several faculty members rushed forward, but Maya waved them back. I saw them, she said. The coalition ships. They're not just coming to talk. They have equipment, scanners, containment fields, things designed to study and hold someone like me. Then you understand, Nixandros said solemnly, why time has become critical. Once bureaucrats and military forces become involved, your choices become limited. They will not willingly allow you to leave with us for training, nor will they accept that your power cannot be controlled or replicated. Maya looked around the assembly hall one more time, at all the beings who had become her friends and teachers. The Zephyrian student who had helped her with atmospheric chemistry was swirling anxiously near the ceiling. The Aquarian meditation teacher flowed closer to the platform, their concern visible in the patterns of their movement. If I go with you, Maya asked Nixandros, will I ever be able to come back? That depends on choices yet to be made, the dragon replied cryptically. But young Flamebearer, if you remain here, will you truly be free to choose your own path? The weight of destiny pressed down on Maya's shoulders like a physical force. In less than 18 hours, representatives of her own species would arrive to claim her. In the meantime, the power within her continued to grow stronger, more unstable, more aware of dimensions she couldn't even name. She was running out of time to decide not just her own fate, but possibly the future of human consciousness itself. Maya spent the next several hours in Professor Veltar's private laboratory, undergoing every scan and analysis the Academy's equipment could provide. The readings were unlike anything in their databases. Energy patterns that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, cellular activity that defied conventional biology, and brainwave patterns that suggested consciousness operating on multiple dimensional levels simultaneously. Fascinating and terrifying in equal measure, Professor Veltar murmured, his crystalline form pulsing with rapid data analysis. Your cellular structure is reorganizing itself at the quantum level. It's as if your DNA is rewriting itself according to some template we cannot detect. Maya lay still on the examination table, feeling the warm honey sensation in her veins growing stronger with each passing hour. The dimensional awareness episodes were becoming more frequent too, brief moments where she could sense the Academy from impossible angles, as if she was looking at it from multiple points in space simultaneously. Professor, she said quietly, what happens to my family if I disappear? My parents, my little brother? They'll never understand what happened to me. The crystalline being's light patterns shifted to gentler hues. Perhaps understanding is not necessary for love to endure. Your family will know you made a choice based on principles they taught you. To help others, to seek knowledge, to do what is right even when it is difficult. Through the laboratory's viewing port, Maya could see the dragon vessels maintaining their protective formation around the academy. They hadn't moved since arriving, but their presence was a constant reminder that her old life was ending whether she chose it or not. Dr. Sixara entered the laboratory, her chronicler features animated with new data. I have discovered something significant in the historical records. The Luminar species did not simply vanish when their flame-bearer transcended. They left behind artifacts, devices that could store and transmit consciousness across vast distances. Communication devices? Maya asked, sitting up despite Professor Veltar's protests. More than that. According to these records, Luminar consciousness storage crystals allowed their physical descendants to maintain contact with the transcended generation for thousands of years. They could share knowledge, wisdom, even emotional connections across dimensional boundaries. Maya felt a spark of hope. So transcendence doesn't have to mean complete separation. Not necessarily, Dr. Sixara confirmed. But the technology required would be far beyond current human capabilities. It would require... Her words were interrupted by an academy-wide announcement. All students and faculty, please remain in designated safe areas. Coalition vessels have arrived and are requesting immediate boarding access. Through the laboratory speakers, they could hear Admiral Torres's voice, crisp and commanding. Celestial Academy, this is Admiral Torres of the Earth Coalition. We are here under emergency provisions to secure citizen Maya Chen for immediate repatriation to Earth. Prepare for boarding. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. They're not asking. They're demanding. Professor Veltar's form brightened with what she'd learned to recognize as protective anger. The Academy is neutral territory. They cannot simply take a student by force. They can if they claim I'm a security threat to humanity, Maya replied grimly. And let's face it, an untrained human with potentially unlimited cosmic power probably does qualify as a security concern. The laboratory door opened, and Chancellor Vorden entered. Her ancient features creased with worry. Behind her came Nixandros, the dragon's presence filling the space with barely contained power. Miss Chen, the Chancellor said, Admiral Torres is insisting on immediate access to you. She claims to have evidence that your awakening poses a direct threat to human colonies. What evidence? Maya demanded. Nixandros answered, their voice heavy with ancient sadness. Dimensional resonance. Your awakening is creating ripples across space-time that their instruments can detect. They believe, incorrectly, that these ripples could destabilize star systems or tear holes in the fabric of reality. Maya felt the heat in her chest pulse in response to her emotional state. Could they? Could I accidentally hurt someone? Not in the way they fear, the dragon replied. But uncontrolled manifestations could indeed cause problems. The fire you breathed earlier would have been much more intense if not for your subconscious restraint. Without training, without understanding how to channel the energy properly, I could hurt my friends, Maya finished quietly. Through the laboratory systems, they could hear Coalition Marines demanding access to the Academy's docking bays. Admiral Torres's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Chancellor Vorden, you have 30 minutes to produce Miss Chen or we will exercise our right of emergency intervention. Maya stood up from the examination table, decision crystallizing in her mind. I won't let them turn me into a weapon, and I won't risk hurting anyone here by staying untrained. Maya, Professor Veltar said urgently. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that sometimes the only way to protect the people you love is to leave them behind. She turned to Nixandros. If I come with you, how long would training take? That depends on your dedication and the rate of your awakening's progression. Months at minimum, possibly years, and young flame-bearer. Once we depart, returning to this dimension will become increasingly difficult as your consciousness expands. Maya felt another dimensional shift, stronger this time. For a moment she could see the coalition ships as clearly as if she were standing on their bridges. Marines preparing assault equipment, scientists readying containment devices, Admiral Torres coordinating with Earth Command about securing the asset. The vision ended, leaving her shaking but resolute. They really are planning to treat me like a weapon. Then you understand the urgency of the situation, Nixandros said. We can offer you training, knowledge, and time to make your choices freely. Your own species, despite their good intentions, will offer you only confinement. Chancellor Vorden stepped forward, her ancient eyes reflecting deep sorrow. Child, if you leave with them, Celestial Academy will always be your home. Whatever you become, wherever your path leads, you will have a place here. Maya felt tears threatening for the first time since this ordeal began. What about my family? How can I just abandon them? Dr. Sixera moved closer, her chronicler database still active. The Luminar left messages, detailed recordings explaining their choice, their love for those left behind, their hopes for the future. Your family may not understand immediately, but they will know you did not abandon them, you sacrificed for them. And perhaps, Nixandros added gently, your path will eventually lead to discoveries that benefit all humanity. The knowledge of the first ones, properly understood, could advance your species by millions of years of evolution. Maya looked around the laboratory one more time, at Professor Veltar, whose crystalline nature had taught her that beauty and intelligence could take countless forms, at Dr. Sixera, whose perfect memory preserved the wisdom of ages, at Chancellor Vorden, whose longevity had shown her that growth never truly ended. I need to record a message, she said firmly, for my family, for Earth, for anyone who wants to understand why I made this choice. Professor Veltar's form pulsed with understanding. Of course, we can transmit it once you're safely away, through the Academy's communication system. Admiral Torres's voice carried new urgency. Chancellor, our sensors indicate massive energy buildup around the Dragon vessels. If they attempt to leave with Miss Chen, we will consider it an act of hostile intervention. Maya felt the heat in her chest respond to her emotional state, growing stronger and more organized. They're going to try to stop us. Let them try, Nixandros said with what might have been grim amusement. They have advanced technology. We have cosmic fire and the knowledge of beings who walked between dimensions before their star was born. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the first flame pulse within her like a second heartbeat. She could sense the vast consciousness calling to her from the spaces between stars. Patient but insistent. She could also sense her friends throughout the Academy, her professors, the incredibly diverse community that had accepted a strange human girl with dreams of studying alien life. I'm ready, she said, opening her eyes. Let's go learn what it really means to be human. The heat in her chest flared in response to her decision, and for a moment, Maya could swear she felt the approval of something vast and ancient watching from dimensions beyond counting. Maya's recorded message to Earth was brief but heartfelt. Sitting in Professor Veltar's laboratory with the dragon ships waiting outside, and coalition forces demanding her surrender, she spoke directly to the camera with the composure of someone far older than her 19 years. Mom, Dad, Jamie, she began, using her brother's nickname. By the time you see this, I'll be gone. I know this will be hard to understand, but something incredible has happened to me. I'm not just human anymore, I'm becoming something more. Something that could help our entire species reach heights we've never imagined. She paused, feeling the first flame pulse steadily within her chest. I'm not abandoning you. I'm not running away from responsibility. I'm accepting a responsibility bigger than anything our family has ever faced. The beings who came for me, the dragons, they're teachers, not conquerors. They've offered to help me understand what I'm becoming. Her voice strengthened as she continued. I've learned that humans aren't alone in the universe, we never were. We carry the genetic heritage of beings so advanced, they transcended physical existence millions of years ago. What's happening to me proves that humanity has potential we've never dreamed of. Maybe someday, when I understand this power fully, I can come home and share what I've learned. Maya looked directly into the camera's lens, imagining her family watching this message on Earth. I love you all. Trust me to make the right choices. And remember, this isn't goodbye. It's just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The recording ended just as the Academy shuddered under what could only be coalition tractors, attempting to prevent any ships from departing. Admiral Torres's voice echoed through the station's communication system with military authority. Dragon vessels, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for inspection. Any attempt to depart with Citizen Maya Chen will be considered an act of hostility against the Earth Coalition. Nixandros remained utterly calm despite the obvious threat. Your military leaders do not understand what they are interfering with. The first flame cannot be contained by technology, no matter how advanced. Maya felt the truth of that statement in her bones. The energy flowing through her body was responding to the tractor beams, Not with resistance, but with something far more concerning: curiosity. The cosmic fire wanted to understand these new forces acting upon it. "We need to leave now," she said urgently. "I can feel the flame wanting to interact with their equipment." "I don't think that would end well for anyone." Professor Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. "Define interact. I'm not sure, but I keep getting images of energy feedback loops of systems overloading. The first flame doesn't seem to recognize the difference between study and attack." Maya pressed her hand to her chest where the heat was building again. "It wants to defend itself." Chancellor Vorden moved quickly to her personal communicator. "Admiral Torres, this is Chancellor Vorden. I strongly advise you to withdraw your vessels to a safe distance. Miss Chen's abilities are still developing, and your interference could trigger an uncontrolled manifestation." The Admiral's response was swift and unsympathetic. "Chancellor, we have our orders. Miss Chen represents a potential threat to human security and must be secured immediately. The Dragon vessels have 60 seconds to allow boarding, or we will disable them." Maya felt that dimensional awareness hit her like a physical blow. Suddenly, she could see the Coalition ships from impossible angles, their weapon systems charging, their tractor beam generators building to maximum power, their scientists preparing equipment she instinctively knew was designed to suppress psychic abilities. But more disturbing was what she could see of the Dragon vessels. They weren't just ships. They were partially existing creatures, beings that had achieved some balance between matter and energy. The Coalition's attempts to control them were causing them pain. "They're hurting you," she whispered to Nixandros. "The tractor beams, they're not just holding your ships. They're actually causing you physical distress." The Dragon's scales shifted through darker patterns, confirming her observation. "Your species' weapons are more dangerous than they realize. They disrupt the dimensional boundaries we exist within. Prolonged exposure could force us back into purely physical form." Maya felt the first flame respond to her emotional state with unprecedented intensity. Heat flooded her body, but this time it didn't stop at her skin. The air around her began to shimmer with energy distortions, and several instruments in the laboratory started displaying impossible readings. "Miss Chen," Professor Veltar said urgently, "your energy signature is spiking beyond our ability to measure." Through the dimensional awareness, Maya could see the Coalition ship's sensors going wild as they detected the massive energy buildup. She could hear Admiral Torres demanding explanations from her scientists, who had no frame of reference for what they were observing. "I have to stop this," Maya said, standing despite the overwhelming sensations flooding her consciousness. "If I don't get away from here soon, the flame is going to manifest whether I want it to or not. And when it does," she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the laboratory could see the reality. An uncontrolled manifestation of cosmic fire in a space station would be catastrophic. Nixandros moved to the laboratory's communication panel. "Admiral Torres, this is First Speaker Nixandros of the Dragon Conclave. Your actions are endangering everyone aboard this station. The Flamebearer's power is responding to perceived threats with increasing intensity. For the safety of all involved, we are departing immediately." "Negative," Torres replied sharply. "Any attempt to leave will be considered an hostile act. We have authorization to use necessary force to prevent—" Her words were cut off as Maya's control finally slipped. The first flame erupted from her with the force of a solar flare. Not just from her mouth this time, but from every pore of her body. The laboratory filled with cosmic fire that burned without consuming. Energy that existed partially outside normal space-time. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly as dimensional barriers weakened. But instead of destruction, something extraordinary happened. The fire reached out through the station's corridors, touching every consciousness it encountered. Not to harm, but to communicate. For one impossible moment, every being aboard Celestial Academy experienced what Maya was experiencing. The vast longing of the first flame for reunion with its cosmic source. The weight of knowledge accumulated over millions of years. The love that transcended species boundaries. The Coalition Marines felt it. Admiral Torres felt it. Every scientist, every engineer, every soldier suddenly understood exactly what they were trying to contain. Not a weapon, but a bridge between dimensions. A key to consciousness itself. The manifestation lasted only seconds before Maya regained control, but its effects rippled through every mind that had touched it. The tractor beams stopped as the operators struggled to process what they'd experienced. Weapon systems powered down as their operators found themselves unable to target something so fundamentally benevolent. "By the depths," whispered Dr. Sixara, her chronicler consciousness still reeling from the contact. That wasn't just cosmic fire. That was pure consciousness, unfiltered awareness. Maya collapsed to her knees, drained by the massive manifestation but oddly at peace. She could feel that something fundamental had changed, not just in her, but in everyone who had experienced the flame's touch. Admiral Torres's voice came through the communication system, but it carried none of its earlier authority. "Chancellor, what did we just experience?" "The awakening of your species' true potential, Admiral," Chancellor Vordun replied gently. "Perhaps now you understand why force and containment are not appropriate responses." Through her dimensional awareness, Maya could see the coalition ship's crews struggling with the philosophical implications of what they'd felt. The Dragon vessels had stopped radiating distress and were now pulsing with what could only be described as approval. "It's time," Maya said quietly, struggling to her feet. "Before the flame builds again, before someone gets hurt. Nixandros, I'm ready to learn what the first ones intended for humanity." The dragon approached her with something that might have been pride in their ancient eyes. "Your first lesson has already begun, young flame-bearer. You chose communication over conflict, understanding over force. The first ones would be pleased." As they prepared to depart, Maya took one last look around the laboratory that had become the birthplace of humanity's next evolutionary step. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever cosmic mysteries awaited her understanding, she was no longer the frightened student who had accidentally breathed fire in xenobiology class. She was becoming something unprecedented, a human who could walk between dimensions while choosing to remember where she came from. 6 months after leaving Celestial Academy, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Dragon vessel Cosmic Remembrance, watching stars wheel past in patterns that would have been impossible to perceive from purely physical space. Her appearance had changed subtly. Her eyes now held flecks of gold that shifted like living flame, and her skin seemed to emit a faint luminescence that grew stronger when she used her abilities. The training with the dragons had been unlike anything she could have imagined. Rather than teaching her to control the first flame, they had taught her to understand it, to work with its cosmic nature instead of fighting against it. She could now manifest controlled fire, phase partially between dimensions, and most remarkably, communicate directly with consciousness itself across vast distances. "You have progressed far beyond our expectations," Nixandros said, approaching from the ship's central chamber. "Most flame-bearers require years to achieve what you have mastered in months." Maya smiled, feeling the warmth of the cosmic fire pulse gently in her chest. "I had good teachers, and strong motivation." Through her expanded consciousness, she maintained constant but subtle contact with Celestial Academy. She could sense her friends and professors going about their daily lives, their awareness occasionally touching the edges of cosmic consciousness they'd experienced during her manifestation. The Academy had become something of a pilgrimage site for species across the galaxy, drawn by stories of the human who had bridged dimensions without losing her connection to material existence. "There is something we must discuss," Nixandros continued, their ancient voice carrying unusual gravity. "The Conclave has reached a decision regarding your future training." Maya turned from the observation port, immediately alert. "What kind of decision?" "Your development has reached a critical juncture. To progress further, you must choose between 2 paths." The dragon's scales shifted through complex patterns that Maya had learned indicated deep uncertainty. "The first path leads to complete awakening, full transcendence to cosmic consciousness, unlimited power, joining with the first ones in whatever realm they now inhabit." "And the second path?" "Remaining in physical form while serving as a permanent bridge between dimensions. You would retain your humanity while gaining the ability to guide other flame-bearers as they awaken. Your species would have a teacher who understands both their origins and their cosmic potential." Maya felt the first flame pulse with anticipation at the mention of transcendence. Part of her consciousness was already reaching toward the vast presence she could sense calling from beyond the observable universe. It would be so easy to let go, to become pure awareness unbound by the limitations of matter. But another part of her thought about her family on Earth, about her friends at the Academy, about the countless humans who might one day face the same choice she was facing now. What would serving as a bridge actually mean? She asked, You would become the first of a new kind of being, Nixandros explained. Still human in form and heart, but expanded in consciousness to encompass multiple dimensional levels. You would age at a much slower rate, possibly becoming effectively immortal, and you would serve as a guide for other humans whose flame begins to awaken. Maya's eyes widened. Other humans are awakening? 17 confirmed cases in the past 6 months, the dragon replied. Your manifestation at the Academy created ripples throughout dimensional space. Other humans with dormant potential are beginning to respond to those ripples. They need guidance, training, someone who understands both their humanity and their developing cosmic nature. Through her expanded awareness, Maya could sense those awakening humans scattered across Earth and its colonies. Most were confused and frightened by abilities they didn't understand. Some were being studied by governments eager to replicate her power. A few were trying to hide their abilities entirely. They're scared, she whispered, feeling their emotional states as clearly as if they were standing beside her. Which is why the choice before you carries such weight, Nixandros said gently. Transcendence would grant you unlimited cosmic awareness, but remove you from the material plane where your guidance is needed. Remaining as a bridge would limit your personal advancement, but allow you to help your species navigate its evolutionary transition. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the competing pulls on her consciousness. The cosmic awareness beckoned with promises of ultimate understanding, of joining with intelligences that had explored the deepest mysteries of existence, but her human heart ached at the thought of abandoning her species just as they were beginning their greatest transformation. There's a third option, isn't there? She said suddenly, opening her eyes to meet Nixandros's ancient gaze. Something you haven't mentioned because the dragons have never tried it. The dragon's scales shifted to patterns Maya had never seen before, surprise mixed with something that might have been hope. What do you perceive? I could transcend temporarily, Maya said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. Not permanently join the cosmic consciousness, but visit it long enough to learn what the first ones intended for humanity. Then return to physical form with that knowledge intact. Impossible, Nixandros said immediately. No being has ever returned from full transcendence. The pull of cosmic consciousness is absolute. No flame-bearer has ever tried while maintaining active connections to material consciousness, Maya countered. But I'm still linked to my friends at the Academy, to the awakening humans, even to my family. What if those connections could serve as anchors? Maya could feel the first flame responding to her words with unprecedented intensity. The cosmic fire sensed possibility in her suggestion. Paths that had never been explored because previous flame-bearers had always been isolated individuals. You would risk everything, Nixandros warned. If you miscalculate, if the cosmic consciousness claims you permanently, your species loses their only experienced guide. And if I succeed, humanity gains knowledge that could advance our understanding by millions of years. Maya felt certainty growing within her like a rising tide. This is why I awakened at Celestial Academy, surrounded by diverse consciousness types. This is why my species forms such strong social bonds. We're meant to remain connected even as we evolve. Through her expanded awareness, Maya could sense the awakening humans responding to her emotional state. 17 frightened individuals scattered across human space suddenly felt less alone, as if someone who understood their transformation was reaching out to reassure them. You would attempt this journey soon, Nixandros asked. Now, Maya said firmly. The awakening humans need guidance immediately, and every day I delay, the pull toward permanent transcendence grows stronger. If I'm going to try this, it has to be while my connections to material consciousness are still strong enough to pull me back. Nixandros was silent for a long moment, their ancient mind processing possibilities and consequences. Finally, their scales shifted to patterns Maya recognized as deep respect, mixed with protective concern. Then we will help you prepare, the dragon said, though I fear we are about to witness something unprecedented, either the greatest triumph or the greatest tragedy in the history of flame-bearers. Maya smiled, feeling the first flame burn steady and strong within her chest. The greatest triumph, she corrected confidently. Because this is what humans do. We push boundaries, we take impossible risks, and we refuse to abandon the people we care about, even when we're becoming something more than human. As she began preparing for a journey no conscious being had ever attempted, Maya held tight to the connections that defined her humanity. while opening her mind to cosmic possibilities beyond imagination. She was about to discover whether love could indeed transcend dimensional boundaries, and whether humanity's greatest strength lay not in individual power, but in refusing to let anyone face transformation alone. The first flame pulsed within her like a second heartbeat, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species toward an impossible reunion with their cosmic heritage.